Welcome to another edition of the Sports Ticket Podcast with yours truly, Wade Gershner. In today's podcast, we are going to recap the Jayhawks game against Iowa State and what has been ailing the Jayhawks up to this point during the regular season, and can they fix the problems they have and make a run deep into March. Also, we've warned you before that gambling is a gigantic issue when it comes to sports, and that there'll be more scandals involving gambling, whether it be professional sports or college sports. We have a couple of noteworthy stories that have broken the last 24 hours to tell you about in regards to sports gambling. And, of course, 5 sports questions for my wife, who struggled a little bit in the first podcast yesterday, but we'll see if she can redeem herself today on our second installment of the Sports Ticket. We begin today's podcast with the Kansas Jayhawks. The Hawks ranked 16th in the country. They were the preseason number 1 team in America. The recipe for success, I guess, is put KU on Big Monday at home with Bill Self on the sidelines. KU 38-0 on Big Monday at home. They take care of the Iowa State Cyclones on Monday night by a final of 69-52. Iowa State's now lost 3 in a row. They're ranked as high as number 2 in the country, so they've fallen off. And KU now improves to 16-6, and both Iowa State and KU 7-4 in the Big 12. And just another example of how inconsistent the Jayhawks are. KU is a team that beat Central Florida on the road by 51 points. They beat Duke early in the season. They lose to West Virginia at home by a point. They are down at halftime at home to Arizona State. They barely beat Central Florida in a rematch, albeit DeJuan Harris did not play, so KU survived that one. They weren't really able to put away K-State in the game. They were up 14-0. This Kansas team has lost twice at home. They've had 2 games that they should have won. Houston lost in double overtime, had that game won twice and couldn't hang on. And then the loss to Baylor this past weekend when they were up by as many as 21 in the first half. And Kansas bounces back, as they usually do after a loss for the most part, especially when they're at Allen Fieldhouse. And they get the job done against the Iowa State team that's a little bit shorthanded but very talented, and a team that really took it to KU and Ames just a few weeks ago. And so the Jayhawks get the bounce-back win, and the thing that stands out is the 3 leaders on this team, KJ Adams, Hunter Dickinson, DeJuan Harris. They have to play well for this team to have any chance of making a deep run in March and perhaps making it to the Final Four and hoisting a national championship trophy. And Zeke Mayo has really saved this team offensively multiple times. He has been the one bright spot when it comes to the transfer portal for the Jayhawks. Rylan Griffin's been up and down. A.J. Store's been pretty much non-existent, although he had 8 points against Iowa State on Monday. But this Kansas team is kind of Jekyll and Hyde. There are times when they look unbeatable. I mean, Baylor first half, they look sensational. Allowed just 21 points first half, and then turned around and gave up 60 in the second half, and Baylor's missing a couple of key players. Kansas lost to West Virginia at home, and West Virginia was missing a couple of their starters. And then Kansas plays like they did on Monday night against Iowa State. Bill Self said after the game on ESPN, hey, consistency, that's what they're looking for. Now, the good news for Kansas Jayhawk fans out there is that there's a long way to go yet in the season. There's still 9 conference games to be played. Can Kansas win a Big 12 title? I highly doubt it. I think they're too far behind Houston and Arizona and Texas Tech and others, and it's a logjam kind of in the middle. But how many times did Kansas win a Big 12 championship and then flame out in March? If you're a Jayhawk fan, I think you don't worry about the Big 12 titles as much. You worry about whether or not you can make it to the Final Four. This team was ranked number 1 in the preseason for a reason. On paper, looked outstanding. Bill Self went and addressed the shooting woes from the perimeter. In regards to, on paper, getting A.J. Store and Zeke Mayo and adding Rylan Griffin. And Kansas this year shooting just 34% from 3. So KU's got to shoot the ball well from downtown, and they need their 3 experienced players to play big in big moments. And they've come up short in some big moments this year, and the loss to Houston clearly was one. Second half against Baylor and so forth and so on. So what Kansas team is going to show up in Manhattan and take on K-State coming up this weekend? I think that's the question. Kansas's next 6 games are very winnable. In fact, there's only one team that has a winning record in Big 12 play the next 6 games, and that's on the road at BYU. They got 2 games against Colorado, who's winless in the conference. K-State has a losing record in the Big 12, but that's a team that's playing great basketball right now, and you know that they will be ready to go at home. It's kind of their Super Bowl against the Jayhawks, and they have beaten Kansas in previous years under Jerome Tang in Manhattan. And they hung with KU despite being hit in the mouth down 14-0 the first time this year at Allen Fieldhouse. So what Kansas team, which Kansas version will we see coming up on Saturday? What type of team will we see the rest of the season? Because it is very frustrating for Jayhawk fans this year when you see Hunter Dickinson look terrific and dominant one game and then disappears offensively in another. It's frustrating to watch this team make some uncharacteristic mistakes compared to Bill Self's teams of the past, not closing out games, in particular at home against West Virginia and not closing out against Houston. This team is a little bit different, and I think it's a team that's making Bill Self pull his hair out a little bit. We know they're capable of being a terrific basketball team. They proved it on Monday night at home against Iowa State. They proved it early in the year. They've also proven that if they're not clicking, things can fall apart in a hurry. So if you're going to make a deep run in March, you have to play consistent basketball. You have to win 4 games in a row to make the Final Four. You have to win 6 in a row to win a national championship. I still don't think Kansas is a national championship contender, even with the great win on Monday night at home against Iowa State. But they definitely have the pieces to make a deep run. There's no question about that. That's why they weren't ranked number 1 in the preseason by accident. So this is a basketball team that has a lot to figure out. Christian Brown, former Jayhawk, went as far to say, paraphrasing, but play the players who care about the name of Kansas across their jersey. And maybe there's some questions of Christian Brown and other former Jayhawks and even Jayhawk fans about what about these transfers that come in and the NIL situation and going out and getting a Store and a Griffin and a Mayo and a David Coit and so forth and so on. These are guys that you're just not going to remember for a long, long time unless they win a national championship because they're kind of one-and-done players, not as freshmen, but as transfers. And so KU, when they are playing their best, no question, they are a national championship contender. When they are not clicking, this team could very easily lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament as a 3 against a 14 or a 2 against a 15. So I don't know what we can expect from Kansas game in, game out, week in, week out, but we will certainly see how it plays out. But right now, this Kansas team feeling good right now after beating Iowa State on Monday night, but how are they going to be feeling after the K-State game coming up this weekend in Manhattan? And K-State will be ready to rock and roll. Well, many people probably would have bet on the Jayhawks to win on Big Monday. Bill Self 37-0 prior to Monday night's game, and now 38-0 on Big Monday at home. Gambling certainly is something we've talked about before in the Sports Ticket, and there's a couple of stories I want to share with you real quickly because sports gambling, we've let the genie out of the bottle. The Pandora's box has been open, and we're not going to put that genie back in the bottle. And Major League Baseball, after a lengthy appeals process, confirmed on Monday that they have fired umpire Pat Hoberg for sharing legal sports betting accounts with a friend who bet on baseball and for intentionally deleting messages key to the investigation into his conduct. There's no evidence that Hoberg directly bet on games or manipulated outcomes of any games in any way, but he was fired for failing to uphold the integrity of the game. And he should have known that his friend, a professional poker player, had bet on baseball from the shared account. Now, what's crazy about this is Hoberg is only 38 years of age, widely regarded as the best ball strike umpire in Major League Baseball. He can reapply for a reinstatement no earlier than the start of the spring training in 2026. He says, I take full responsibility for the errors in my judgment. He was so good calling balls and strikes that he had a perfect game in the World Series. 129 taken balls and strikes. He got every single one right. Game 2 of the 2022 World Series. So we've lost an outstanding umpire due to being fired by Major League Baseball, but it is his mistake to do what he did. He is now no longer a Major League Baseball umpire. There were 141 baseball bets placed from his friend's accounts, 8 bets involved 5 games that Hoberg umpired or had responsibility for replay reviews. There's no evidence that Hoberg took any action to manipulate the outcome of the games, but the fact that he's associated with somebody like that certainly makes it possible. So that's story number 1. And then story number 2 is gambling at the professional ranks, and there's also at the college level. And a gambling ring currently under a federal investigation for its role in 2 NBA betting cases also was involved in unusual wagering activity on at least 3 men's college basketball programs this season, according to ESPN and sources. Sportsbook accounts connected to the gambling ring bet against North Carolina A&T, Mississippi Valley State, and Eastern Michigan. Of course, there was Jonte Porter, Toronto Raptors, who admitted to manipulating his performance during games for gambling purposes. Terry Rozier, when he was with the Charlotte Hornets, has been accused of this, although that hasn't been proven yet. And who knows how many other pro athletes and college athletes have participated in shaving some points or making sure that they don't score over their point total, whether they're a bench player or a starter or whatever the case may be. So it's something we'll continue to follow. My prediction has been here for the last year or so that as more states legalize sports gambling, sports betting, and then you can bet right there from the game sites as well, that eventually we're going to have a gigantic scandal, a huge scandal that's going to involve some top flight athletes. We'll see if I'm proven to be correct, but there continues to be some disturbing things coming out of the gambling world tied to professional and college sports. Before we get to 5 sports questions for my wife, a lot of people like the first rendition where she said the Jets played the Chiefs last year in the Super Bowl. And, of course, we all know that was not the correct answer. It was the 49ers. We'll have some fun with that coming up in just a moment. A preview of what we got to come tomorrow on the Sports Ticket Podcast. We'll look at the K-State men's basketball team. Can they keep it rolling as they're on the road at Arizona State? What to expect from the Chiefs' offense against the Eagles' formidable defensive line. Eagles, one of the best defenses in the league. And my thoughts on the Kansas State High School Activity Association's shot clock experiment. That's all coming up on the Sports Ticket tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. All right, it's that time of the show where we're going to find out how much my wife knows about sports. And she's the first to admit that she doesn't know a lot about sports. But to have a little extra fun with this, my 11-year-old is here as well. And he's going to answer the same 5 questions that I asked my wife. We'll go one at a time. Today's topic is Mr. Patrick Mahomes. Question number 1. Let's start with my wife. What college did Patrick Mahomes attend?
TCU.
11-year-old?
Texas Tech.
Ding, ding, ding. Point number 1 for the 11-year-old.
I knew it was in Texas.
You were close. Question number 2. Patrick Mahomes wears number 15 for the Kansas City Chiefs. What number did he wear at Texas Tech? To my wife.
5.
To my 11-year-old.
5.
That is correct. You both got it right. She didn't even know, but she got lucky. Good job. All right, I think Mom may know the answer to this one. All right. What is the name of Patrick Mahomes' wife?
Brittany.
Brittany.
That is correct. You both got that correct. Very good. I thought that my wife would get that one. All right. How many Super Bowls has Patrick Mahomes won as a member of the Kansas City Chiefs? My wife is up first.
2.
And my 11-year-old.
3.
11-year-old is correct again. It's 3 Super Bowls, not 2. Yes, they're going for 3 in a row. That is correct, but he's already won 3. And finally, question number 5. How much my wife and 11-year-old know about sports. And today's topic, Patrick Mahomes. This one's very important. Mahomes is part owner of what fast food restaurant chain?
Whataburger?
11-year-old?
I don't know.
You got to pick something. Time is up. The correct answer is Whataburger. So, my wife, who doesn't know a lot about sports, did get 1, 2, 3 out of 5. And the 11-year-old got 1, 2, 4 out of 5. You did very well. Good job. Thanks for tuning in to the Sports Ticket Podcast.